Formula One has been a closed championship with the same teams fighting year after year. Is it time that Formula One implemented a new promotion and relegation system? Now, you occasionally get new teams joining the grid like Aston Martin did in 2021, but these teams commonly just buy out existing Formula One teams and keep the majority of staff and facilities. Is mainly just a marketing rebrand. Motorsport in general has a huge amount of amazing drivers that deserve a spot on the Formula One grid. But due to the grid being limited to 20 spots only, this just can't be the case. I would say that the current grid we have in the 2023 season is probably the strongest grid Formula One has ever seen. So why propose promotion and relegation when you could just add more teams into the Formula One paddock? Now the reason for this is you can't just keep adding more and more teams. I think we could probably get away with 2 more teams, but even that would be pushing it. You just have to see qualifying in some places like Monaco, where you can just see there are too many cars for that circuit. And I don't want them to start doing what they do in Formula 2 and splitting qualifying between 2 separate sessions. Also, the downside in adding 2 brand new teams to the Formula 1 grid is it will take those teams a long time to get up to the standard of some of the giants like Mercedes, Red Bull and Ferrari. It will likely take multiple years, if not major regulation changes, to be able to get the staff, facilities and experience to become even slightly competitive. This video is going to explain how a promotion and relegation system could work in the top tier of motorsport. Now, I'm not saying I want this to happen in Formula 1, it's just an idea for a YouTube video. Let me know in the comments down below of what you think of this proposed system. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, that single-seater racing already has a second tier of racing in Formula 2. But I would say that Formula 1 and Formula 2 are so different that they can almost be considered as 2 separate racing series. The jump from Formula 2 to Formula 1 is huge, and it often takes the best Formula 2 drivers multiple seasons to get used to Formula 1. In recent years, Mick Schumacher, Yuki Tsunoda and Logan Sargent are some of the best young drivers in the world, and they definitely have a future in Formula 1. Formula 2 cars are basically simplified versions of F1 cars. They lack the same level of speed and agility due to a reduced downforce and lower engine power. The Formula 1 steering wheel alone incorporates a huge amount of features, including clutch, handling settings, gears, DRS, fuel, brake balance, pit controls, ERS, and many more that drivers will have to control during the race. There is an amazing video of Valtteri Bottas at Mercedes doing a qualifying lap, and you can see just how much he has to adjust during that one lap. Formula 2 is a spec series, which means that all the cars are exactly the same. Now, the reason for this is the whole point of Formula 2 is about the drivers. By having all the cars exactly the same, the drivers will be based on their performance alone, and Formula 1 teams will be able to identify the best drivers based on their raw pace alone, not just whoever is in the most dominant car. Now, for promotion and relegation in motorsport, you can't just relegate Formula 1 down to Formula 2. They are completely different racing series. It's almost like trying to relegate Haas down to the MotoGP. It just doesn't work. Compared to football, which does have promotion and relegation, the game is identical. The difference between the leagues is only the quality of football being played. The rules are identical. So what's the solution for this? Now, if you had something in between Formula 1 and Formula 2, say Formula 1.5, this would provide a series that's watched almost as much as Formula 1 and is held to the same standard as Formula 1, but it would allow more teams to join the sport and it would add more jeopardy to the Formula 1 season. Personally, I would love to follow a racing series where teams at the end of it could get promoted to Formula 1. I think that would attract the interest of a lot of fans compared to things such as F2 and F3, which are just spec series at the end of the day. So what would we call this second division of Formula 1 racing? Now, Formula 1 would obviously keep its name, and we have F2, 3 and 4, so I think I'd keep those the same. You could call it Formula 1.5, but I'm not a big fan of that. I think I would call it something along the lines of Formula Championship. Now I don't really love this name, but I'd like to keep the Formula 1, 2 and 3 the same. So how does this work for Formula 1 if you can't get relegated to Formula 2? Now let's completely forget about Formula 2, that will stay completely as it is. It will be kept as a spec series and completely separate from what we're talking about. So this new division of motorsport will be created, Formula Championship, and this will have the exact same rules and regulations as Formula 1. So any new teams that want to join in Formula 1 will have to join into this Formula Championship first, and in order to get to Formula 1 they will need to secure promotion. I think this is better than teams buying their way into Formula 1 and just becoming a backmarker because they don't have the facilities and development to push forward. The promotion and relegation system would only be a 2-league system, so you're not going to see Red Bull get relegated down to the karting world championships or anything like that. So the level of risk is fairly low for the current teams in Formula 1, who would clearly be against this as it would provide some risk to them. So the bottom 2 teams in Formula 1 at the end of the season would get relegated down to the Formula Championship. But this also means in the Formula Championship, the top 2 teams in that finishing position will get promoted up to Formula 1. You could even have P1 in the Formula Championship get promoted, and positions 2 and 3 go into some sort of quali sprint shootout in the last race of the season in order to determine who gets promoted. Kind of similar to the playoff system in the championship in football. So all new teams in the Formula 1 championship that join will have to develop their own cars from scratch. Now they can buy components from other teams, like Haas buy their engines from Ferrari for example, but chassis and aerodynamics will have to be developed themselves. They will need to have a team of trackside engineers to optimize setup and strategy, and they will have to develop a team to maximize the performance to get promoted to Formula 1. Now I do believe that no team has the vision of sitting at the back of the field. I think all 10 teams in Formula 1 do have the goal of winning the championship, excluding potentially AlphaTauri. Now, in my personal opinion, I think AlphaTauri will never win a championship as long as they are in Formula 1. You might think, why not? They are a separate team to Red Bull. Yes, they are their sister team, but they are completely different. They have their own engineers, and in the modern age of Formula 1, you're not allowed to share development with any teams. It's extremely strict what you can and can't do, and even things like engineers going to different teams, there's a lot of regulations around gardening leave. But if AlphaTauri were starting to outperform Red Bull would quickly take their drivers or engineers for themselves, as they are the ones funding AlphaTauri in the first place. AlphaTauri is owned by Red Bull, and its sole purpose is developing young drivers for the Red Bull Racing program and as a marketing brand for their clothing line. So what teams could join this new promotion and relegation system? Now you'd obviously have the same 10 current Formula 1 teams, and I'd keep 10 teams in Formula 1 and this new Formula Championship. I think 10 teams at the moment is great. 12 might start to get a little bit overcrowded. The only way I think the 10 teams could be improved if the likes of AlphaTauri and some of the other back markers that aren't seeming to make any sort of progress year on year are replaced by teams that will be more competitive in the midfield. The 10 new teams that would join the Formula Championship would be up for debate. I put together a quick provisional list of some of the teams that have been rumoured to have an interest and even put the bid forward into the FIA. So some of the teams include Hitech. Now they are a powerhouse of the junior formula in F2, 3 and 4, and in 2023 it was announced that they have been on a 20-month mission to submit their application into Formula 1. You also have Andretti. Now you're probably well aware of the Andretti rumours now, and it's probably just a matter of time until it is announced that they will partner with Cadillac to join Formula 1 in 2026. We have Carlin, another junior series team interested in expanding to Formula 1. We have Panthera. Benjamin Durand, who is the team principal and co-founder of this Asian team, has confirmed that the team is in the process of signing up for the FIA's expression of interest to join Formula 1. You have Audi. Now Audi are one of the teams that have been confirmed to take over Alfa Romeo in 2026. We have Porsche, who have shown huge interest last year in partnering with Red Bull. Now this deal inevitably fell short as Porsche wanted a 50% stake in Red Bull Racing, which Red Bull were clearly not going to take after they partnered with Ford. Now they didn't get this deal, but they may be interested in starting their own team in 2026. Now speaking of Red Bull, Ford will be the powertrain providers of Red Bull for the new engine regulations in 2026, and Ford might believe they have the money and technology to start a competitive team themselves and challenge some of the giants in Formula 1. You have Formula Equal, which is a prospective Formula 1 proposal which is led by Craig Pollock, and it aims to have a 50-50 exact gender split. They have already expressed their interest in Formula 1 and are in talks currently for funding. You have LKY Sons, who are also a new team that have expressed interest. And finally, to wrap off the list, you have Formula 2 giants Prema, who have a huge amount of history in motorsport. And yeah, it looks like they're trying to expand into Formula 1 as well. So I think there are many pros to this system. There are a lot of drivers currently around the Formula 1 paddock that don't have a racing seat. Daniel Ricciardo, Felipe Drugovich, Mick Schumacher, Antonio Giovinazzi, just to name a few. Now, these drivers would all be able to find a spot fairly easily in this new division, as well as giving some of the lesser known names a chance to show their skills. If you say that Formula 2 is the closest that you get to Formula 1 racing, the 2022 and 2020 Formula 1 champions Felipe Drugovich and Mick Schumacher don't have seats in Formula 1, and Nick De Vries and Oscar Piastri only got a seat last year after being sidelined for many seasons. Now I think the main concerns with this proposal is historic teams like Williams could get relegated to this lower division and potentially cause them to go into bankruptcy. Now this championship clearly wouldn't have the marketing and appeal of Formula 1, but I think if it was branded in a way that it had the same level of performance as Formula 1, a lot more fans would watch it than say Formula 2 and IndyCar. Can you imagine Daniel Ricciardo and Mick Schumacher in a Ford Formula 1 team fighting against the likes of Felipe Drugovich and Carlton Herta in Andretti for a promotion into Formula 1? Who wouldn't want to see that? Formula 1, with their abundance of wealth, could fund this to start with to ensure that all the teams are financially stable. Now if teams get relegated, it wouldn't mean that they have to get rid of all their facilities, as like I mentioned before, the standard would be exactly the same. If they can develop a really competitive car, they will get back into Formula 1 in the following season. And they will still need the wind tunnel, all the things in their factory and members of staff in order to compete in that championship, as it will be held to the exact same standard. It's not like you're going from Formula 1 down to a spec series like Formula 2, where you just don't need any of those facilities. Now I know they're completely different, but it does work in football. Sunderland were a consistent Premier League club before getting relegated twice in 2 seasons in 2016 and 2017. They are now fighting their way back up to the Premier League after having a strong season last year in the Championship. Now this just adds more jeopardy to the league, which will make it way more exciting for fans and may even bring in a bigger audience. Will the current Formula 1 teams want this to come into place? No, definitely not. The risk of getting relegated to a lower league is huge for them, so they would want to be in the league they're currently in, which is just Formula 1, where even if they have a really bad season, the worst thing that can happen is they will just get less prize money for that season. But Formula 1 teams also don't want more teams joining Formula 1. This just adds to more competition in general, and more competition makes it harder for you to win a championship. But it looks like in the news recently that 2 new teams have been given the green light to join Formula 1. So I think the teams shouldn't really have a say in this, and I think that should be the case. Teams like Ferrari have a huge amount of fans following them, and they have a huge amount of power historically. They could threaten to leave Formula 1 and start their own league with Mercedes and Red Bull if they wanted to, as I think about 90% of the Formula 1 fans are fans of either Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari or McLaren. So what do you think of this idea? Do you think a promotion and relegation system would work in Formula 1? I think it could be interesting to see, but let me know down in the comments below what you think, and thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one. Cheers.